Hey everyone, Dan here. Thanks for listening. I just wanted to let you know that Giving Tuesday is just around the corner on November 29th. This year we're raising funds to support the classes that we've been running in South Korea for the refugees, like Konglish classes, exercise classes, and our short retreats. Our goal this year is to raise $40,000 to fund these classes for 2023. If you're interested, just go to the Giving Tuesday link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the show.
What's up, Dan?
Hey.
Post Halloween. Did you have a good Halloween? I know we already talked Halloween, but I just love Halloween so much. I want to let it live on as long as possible before Christmas takes over.
It was, we moved into our neighborhood in 2021. So this is our second Halloween. It was definitely like 10 times more busy on the candy giving front than the previous year. I think COVID and things like that. Yeah. It was fun.
That's good. We had a lot of candy giver outers this year. I'm sorry. That was a dumb way of saying things. It's early. I gave out a lot of candy, more than usual. I dressed up as Garth from Wayne's World.
Oh, nice.
But literally no one knew who I was. They just thought I was this like blonde-haired Korean dude, Asian dude. And then some parents though call that out from like, because like we have like a gate, so like they walk up, and the parents would see me in the door, and they'd be like, "Wayne's World." I was like, "Yes, thank you, parent, for recognizing."
I hope that those movies don't get forgotten with the passage of time. They're excellent.
They are excellent. Not to switch complete gears. Well, I live with Halloween because the next topic we're talking about is ghost ships, which just sounds spooky. Yeah, it sounds really spooky, but it's just more horrific than spooky. Well, that can be spooky too. But it's been this phenomenon that's been happening in Asia, in the coastal waters of the peninsula of Korea, around Japan, even in Russia and some parts of China. What's the sea again called between China and Korea?
Well, there's two. There's the Sea of Japan, or as Korea calls it, the East Sea.
Okay.
That's off the East Coast.
Okay.
And then on the other side, it's, I think, the Yellow Sea.
Yellow Sea.
Yeah.
That's it. So racist. Who named it that? The water's not yellow. We know that.
It's such a beautiful coast in Korea.
So we're going to start today. Just going to jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
There is a podcast a friend of mine put me on to called Unexplained Mysteries. It's really great. It's kind of like Unsolved Mysteries. You remember that show, Unsolved Mysteries?
I love that show.
Yeah. Where it's like this,
as a kid.
What was the guy's name? John something that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like this really gritty voiced guy who just.
Nice.
And it's a woman, actually. A man and a woman do this. They narrate it, and they narrate all these basically like reports on like unexplained mysteries, which is really cool. A lot of it's like paranormal,
nice.
Just like, Bigfoot. They'll do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Early on, they had one called Ghost Ships, North Korean ghost ships. And there was a 2-parter, actually.
Oh.
Highly recommend y'all check it out.
Yeah.
It's really entertaining. And they're just like facts driven. They just basically are reading like news reports, it sounds like, of like what it's like reading a wiki in a very dramatic style of like telling you what's happened here. So without further ado, ghost ships. So what these are basically really old looking ships that seem outdated, that are randomly just show up on the shore in Japan, China, Russia, even in South Korea as well. And fishermen and people who live on the coast just start to like freak out because these boats look really antiquated. They're dead basically, like they're not running. Some of them don't even have motors. They wash up, they're all broken up. But the horrific part is like there are usually dead bodies.
Yes.
Carcasses on board. That really freaks them out, and it makes people, in a small fishing community feel like I'm cursed or something. This is a curse, right? And they like start to flip out and they don't.
There's something about the sea, right?
Yeah.
And the vastness. I've never been on a boat that's, in the middle of nowhere where you can't even see the shore, but I can imagine there's so much lore around the sea, right? So when something like this washes up on your shores, your mind automatically sort of goes to the paranormal, right? Or the spiritual, at least. It's very freaky.
Yeah. And what's even more odd, it's not just dead bodies. Like in this particular instance, there was a boat that washed up ashore on Sado Island in Japan. It was broken into two. Inside, police discovered 5 corpses and a pair of human heads.
Oh my gosh.
So not only just corpses, but like decapitated heads.
Oh my gosh.
Were on this boat. So what are these ghost ships? Let me explain real quick. And again, check out the podcast. It's really entertaining. I'm not doing it justice. I'm just going to give you the high level here. And obviously there's a lot of speculation because we don't know. Mm-hmm. So what we actually do know is like, okay, so these ships have been showing up since 2011 is when the first year, which there's official data from the Japanese Coast Guard. And so we don't really, at least from Japan, because that's where these boats appear the most. There were 57 boats reported in 2011. We don't know how many bodies were disclosed. Each wreckage was counted as a separate incident, but the number of boats might be overstated a little bit. So maybe it's a little less than 57.
Okay.
And then most of them are believed to be North Korean because the lettering, the primitive nature of the boats, and some other clues. Maybe it's like people if they're wearing clothes. But most of them are North Korean, they speculate. This is 2011. Since that time, all this stuff has been confirmed because it's just been happening. The pattern formed. 2012, 47 boats. 2013, 80 boats. 2014, 65 boats. 2015, 34 boats. So every year, the Coast Guard of Japan has been reporting. And if you look down, get to 2018, 89 boats, or 2017, 104 boats, and at least 31 bodies.
Wow.
2018, 89 boats. 2019, 156 boats reported. In one case, 7 bodies washed up on the island of Sado, which I think is just maybe the closest island to North Korea from Japan. So this has been a trend, and it's appearing. And again, they're called ghost boats because the appearance, the dead bodies, obviously, and then the antiquated nature of the boats.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I found this. So here's another factoid. The North Korean ghost ships have been reported as far as the Russian east coast of the east of Russia.
Yeah.
So
it's not just Japan.
It's not just Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going, and who knows? Maybe these like boats. Well, they're fishing boats, so I think they can only go so far. But here's a crazy little factoid that one of the Japanese articles mentioned. They found some boats really far, that like a fishing boat of that nature. Let me describe these boats. Some of these don't even have propellers, like motors.
Wow.
And if they do, they have like a 12 horsepower blender pushing in a massive torrential ocean.
Yeah, not a Vitamix blender.
Not a
Just one of the lesser brands.
The Ninja.
The Ninja. Yeah, Ninja. I have a Ninja, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yes, not Vitamix style. It's the handheld blender, It's what it is? It's one of those like, remember in Ace Ventura, the little fan he uses to push his little boat? It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Here come the movie references, by the way.
There you go.
All right. And so these guys are like very primitive boats, sail, row power, no GPSs, which a lot of officials speculate why they go stranded and because they get lost, basically.
Yes.
So a couple of things here. The other speculation is they're like, these boats are too small without motors to get this far. How do they get out here? Yeah. Is they think what's happened, and this is geopolitical now, they think North Korea has been getting way more bold because they have such short food supplies on their fishing that they tow all these tiny fishing boats out with a huge like Freightliner to these places and then cut the ropes and head back. And then these boats are just there to fish, and then they have to come back on their own.
What?
And I don't even know if they cut the ropes or they're planning on coming back in like a
right.
week. I don't know how it works, but they're basically tugging. At least the speculation is they tug like 100 of these boats out to these waters they can't reach, let them fish, and then they come back for them, or they get lost because these guys don't have. They're in the middle of the ocean. They don't have a GPS. They don't even know where they are.
That's crazy. Yeah, this is all shocking and new to me. I've heard of these ghost ships. It was just my assumption that, I know quite a bit about North Korea, but there's no way you could follow everything, right? Because there's so much strange and bizarre. So this is very shocking to me. My assumption was it was like one a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. The rate was nowhere near as high as it is. That is insane.
Yeah, and it's I love this. So this is an article. We'll put it in the notes here. It's from Hakai magazine, which is a Japanese magazine. Mm-hmm. And they go into in depth about the ghost ships. And let me see what year this was from. This is from 2020, so a couple years ago. That they talk a little bit about like what they think. They speculate again the origins of like North Korean kind of legend and lore, which again I'm always interested in. That obviously like, kind of how you mentioned like that the ocean was this chaotic place with like monsters and spirits. One of them called Yongwan, the so-called Dragon King, and that it kind of had this like shamanistic allure to it that many fishermen would like go to see the shaman before they left for like their fishing expedition,
Yes.
And so like, they're just talking about like how in the 1930s an American missionary reported that skippers near the northern town of Jeju still visited their local mudang or shaman before setting out to sea. Yeah. And that like this is probably something also in North Korean practice too, which is kind of crazy. It's just like this idea of, it reminds me of like Napoleon or like, the Spanish Armada, or Columbus, whatever he did, like setting out to the unknown. Yeah. And like, you're not coming back. You know what I mean? Like you're signing these things where like, you're not coming back.
I see.
But this is like modern day 2020. And
I think this is a picture into the North Korea's complete disregard for human life, right? In any situation, let's say even like, I know this is a weird example, but even when it comes to car recalls, right? The loss of life has to be high enough, right, where to motivate these companies to pay for the recall of these cars, right? Yeah. So I'm saying that because that also happens in our society. Yeah. Right? But I think the difference in North Korea is that the price of a life is much cheaper. Yeah. And that's the shocking part about it, right?
It's interesting that you put it that way because, I agree with that. I think for me, I think of it as, so in the way you framed it now was like a capitalism lens, right? Like with the car industry, it's capitalism, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
The dollars make more sense than the lives.
Right.
Or the risk reward.
Yeah.
For me, some part, and this has actually come from you, actually, is the idea that like in Asian culture, the the whole is better than the individual always. The greater good is always more important, which is funny that you brought that up because now that I see like there's a little bit of capitalism in there in that Confucius ideology. Yeah. That if the greater good is the most important, then we'll throw waves of people at it because it's for the quote unquote greater good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of these fishermen or fisher women are going out there thinking, yeah, I could very well lose my life, but if I do, the higher cause is I died for my country. My country needs this, or my great leader needs a sushi or whatever.
You think a guy's on there be like thinking, oh, the great leader might eat this fish in my hands.
Yes. He loves yellowtail.
I love yellowtail.
Yeah, so good. So, I could see that even on an individual level playing out as well.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Similar to the Australian, heroin smuggling thing we talked about in a few episodes back. Mm-hmm. That one North Korean guy that got caught was just like gung ho to be going home.
Yes.
And we don't know, but he probably didn't go home to a warm welcome. But
yeah.
That's so crazy. You know what? Like, it's hard for me to.
Yeah.
I don't want to say judge, but it's hard for me to like judge that and be like, oh, I feel pity for you that you think that way, because it's like,
it's just a different way of thinking.
It is,
right?
and that's their truth and reality, and who am I to say that's not true or real or something that they find nobility in? Now, what's not noble is the regime, for sure, like the dictatorship and what they do. That's
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
right? The callousness. Of that calculation, as well as the car industry, right?
Sure,
to be honest,
sure. But at the level of the people, it's hard to just be like, oh, you dumb suckers, or like, you guys are foolish.
Yeah, that's true.
It's actually very admirable, the level of commitment or devotion, if that's true, right? So
that means the ghosts that wash up on shore are very admirable ghosts.
They are.
So, okay, hold on. I have questions because I didn't listen to this podcast. This is all new to me now.
Yeah.
So the theory is they might get tugged out by a larger ship, cut loose, hopefully we'll find you, and if not, you're on your own. You got to make your way back. Are there any other theories?
So that's the main one for distance. Like if they see these boats washing up in islands that they're too far away for them to be to make it, Right. But they never know. They could have died, months ago, and then this thing was just drifting along. But they were just saying that's a theory of like how they could have gotten there. And some of the boats, I guess, were in better shape too, not like torn in half. The other thing is just straight up hunger and fishermen risking further distances than they're used to just to get food. And so they get lost. And then that's the situation where they get lost, they drift, and then it's, they just don't make it back.
I'm sure with a risky proposition like this, it's like a high risk, high reward type of thing, right? So if you do come back successfully with a bigger catch, you will get more per pound or whatever than you would get normally, or just per hour worked or whatever, right? So they're like, okay, we're out here. We can make it big here. We could really do a lot for our families. Let's push it a little, and they could just get out of range.
And fishing is one of those things where, like, it's not like farming or raising cattle where you have to have kind of some kind of foundation, or you need a boat, right? But but it's like you can just stick a line and hook in the water and you can get something, or a net, right?
Is that how it works? It's not how it works with me when I go fishing. A lot of times I come up empty.
You know what? I can't even say I'm avid anymore, but I am a fisher person, and I think I've gotten pretty good, at least at bass. But yes, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, especially in the ocean. In the ocean that big,
right? Yeah.
With no radar, or tools to tell you where the fish are.
No sonar or radar tools. Fish finder. That's insane. Are there any other theories besides fishing? I wonder. It's got to be fishing, right? Do they know that they have, because they have fishing equipment?
So there are theories that some of these are defectors. People trying to literally jump ship out of North Korea. Sorry about that. But like I said, there's this one with like decapitation. So
like,
what are these decapitated heads for? And they don't know. Like they're not sure. And
oh my gosh.
Some of them think the decapitation was probably someone on board who just was the person in charge and didn't like people talking. When you get hungry and you're about to die, you might say some things that go against the country or the motherland, and maybe someone just had stuck to their guns and said, you know what, that's punishable by death, you're going to die now.
Right.
Or even darker, maybe they needed food to survive, and these were some of the people that were chosen. Who knows? Yeah,
it says here they're puttering 36 horsepower engines. I mean, I fish in Chicago, large ponds, medium-sized river near my house. 43 horsepower is what pretty commonly seen out in those waters.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put it into context. So if you're out in the middle of the sea, that is not a lot of horsepower at all.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that they're carrying a lot of fuel either, right? That's just more space and weight.
Yeah. And it would also, another add spice to the story is like, as they're spreading out, they're actually spreading out into like maritime waters that are not quote unquote legal, or maybe neutral. They're more neutral, but North Korea has not been known to head into those territories in fear of being captured, maybe, and like people or people running away, maybe even defecting.
Yeah.
But they're like venturing further out, which is another sign of the failure of food acquisition and the North Korean side, the government side.
Yeah. And, just for a little bit of context, I just thought of this. The refugees that we help, they don't like meat, like pork or beef or even chicken, as much as they do fish. Fish is a staple in the North Korean diet. Mm-hmm. It sits well with people. I mean, like the younger people, they want the meat and stuff, but people who grew up in North Korea, who have less adventurous palates, they do not like to eat beef or pork. They prefer fish because it's such a staple in the North Korean diet.
Even so I always equate North Koreans' diet now to like my grandparents' diet, or like my parents, because like some of my parents, our parents that I know, are only fish eaters. Like they don't like chicken, they don't like pork and all these other things.
Pescatarian.
Yeah, but not because of the animal rights. It's just by sheer taste.
Yeah, and how it is light but fatty, right? So it does sit very well in your stomach and satiating. Yeah, so North Koreans, a lot of North Koreans that we help, they don't, in South Korea even, where there's plentiful pork. Beef is still expensive, but pork is just so dirt cheap in Korea.
But do they eat like crustaceans, like shrimp and like mussels and clams?
So my wife, she went on a retreat with these refugees. We took them out to the beach, and they had an activity, clam digging.
Yeah.
And my wife, she grew up in Chicago and Anchorage, right? So she didn't grow up near any like huge waters, and she didn't know how to clam for anything. So she was like just 2 left feet, like digging into the sand. Mm-hmm. But these women, they're like, okay, this is what you do. And they were so good at it because they had to kind of do this to survive, right? Yeah. They were so skilled, and they knew exactly what to do. I guess you throw them in a bucket of salt water so they spit out the silt before you could eat. They knew all of that. So very skilled at clam digging. So
all the seafood fare is in North Korean cuisine. Yeah,
definitely. And I've had some of their, there's this soup. It's not a spicy soup. It's but it had like the dried fish rehydrated in the soup. No,
you're talking the wrong guy.
I'm sure you've had it before. It's probably delicious. Yeah, but that I've So in China, you have access to North Korean like dried fish, and it's like
cuttlefish, like the ojinga.
No. It's like a fillet, but it's dehydrated.
Okay.
And then when you put it back in the soup, the soup takes on the flavor of very concentrated fish, and then you eat that fish too.
Ooh,
when it's
good.
rehydrated. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, when I would go into China, my parents would be like, get the North Korean dried, because you can bring that back, right? Because it's dry. And they're like, that stuff is incredible.
I wonder what kind of fish it is.
Yeah, I forgot what it's called.
It's
yeah,
homework. You have to ask.
We need Tony.
Ask your parents about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need some real Koreans in here to do this podcast. We're fake Koreans.
But yeah, man, I mean, the sheer number here is just absolutely staggering, but it points to like I said, the complete disregard for human life, but also the desperation of the individuals who are in this situation to supposedly willing, I'm guessing it's willingly, to get on these boats and do their thing. That's shocking.
How many refugees have you met or do you know of that escape by boat? Zero. So that always made me...
It is not a common way to defect. I've heard a couple stories in the news about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Well, like, because even like here in the States, right, we would have rafts coming up from Central America, right?
Yeah.
In South America,
and
I
Cuba.
guess too. Yeah. So like, and that's a shorter gap for sure than Yellow Sea.
Yeah.
But I wonder like why, and maybe it's because of the sea. I don't know. Like the waters are just crazier out there. I don't know. Why do you think that is? Like I would think like that would be a way to get out.
Well, I don't know if I shared this on the podcast. Maybe I have, but very few North Koreans know how to swim. Too.
Okay.
So that could play into it. Like crossing north into China, you have to cross a river, but a lot of them have crossed in the winter when the river freezes solid.
Got it.
The climate up there is like northern Wisconsin, so it freezes pretty early and for the better part of the year, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen footsteps on that river crossing over or getting really close to it. And yeah, I mean, they don't know how to swim, so they try to avoid that at all costs.
I mean, that makes sense. That's a huge drowning is a huge deterrent.
But I'm sure these boat people, I'm sure a lot of them don't know how to swim either. That's true. That's true. And I'm sure I'm just guessing.
I don't know. I guess if you grew up on a coastline or near water, I think you just naturally, because you go into the water all the time, you learn how to swim. You like dive for whatever fish and things you get.
Yeah, and
I would think you do at least. I don't know. But that makes sense though. Like, well, again, now I'm confused because maybe it doesn't make sense. I wonder if there are like fishermen who just are like, I need to get out of here. I have the boat.
Right.
I have the means, but is it the strength of the pull of the lie of the regime,
right,
that just keeps him there and be like, I gotta fish.
Yeah.
I gotta risk my life getting him the yellowtail. That's insane to me. That's powerful.
And it also speaks to the lack of food being grown in the country as well, right? Where if you're desperate enough for food, if this is your only source of food, right? Like if it's not growing out of the ground because of flooding and mismanagement of a farm, not enough equipment or not enough gas to run your equipment, then the sea is always right there. It's right there.
Yeah.
Right? And so, hey, maybe we need to pull more calories out of the sea this year because of the lack of calories coming from the ground too.
Like you brought this up before. Actually, I was thinking about it this morning. Sometimes I forget North Korea is a nation, right? Like we hear you and I talk about these very specific things, But this is like a nation of people. This is like, how many, what's the population?
Like 22, 25 million.
25 million.
Yeah.
Right? Of people who are very, all different types of people, walks of life, you know, different upbringings, different, even, so this is why I triggered this. Like, you got the people living by the coast and you got the mainland people, right?
Yeah.
And like, people who live in California are very different, or even like Washington are very different than people who live in Chicago or grew up here.
Right.
And what is boggling my mind right now is that no matter where they live, the same propaganda and mindset prevails throughout. You know what I mean? That boggles my mind.
That's the impressiveness of the level of the control of the regime. Because in America, right, there are all kinds of people with differing views and opinions, and
America is too far. We're on the other side. We got to talk about like I don't know, like Colombia,
or even South Korea, right?
South Korea. There you go, South Korea.
Double the amount of people.
I was trying to think of another like more communist leaning state of like, Colombia. And I apologize to Colombians, but I don't know a lot about the country. But from what I understand, there's a lot of cartel run or controlled things that make it very dangerous to live there.
Yes.
Or could make it. And, but Colombia, I think, is inland, completely inland or mainland.
Yeah.
But
I believe so.
there are people escaping there, right? To go to other countries or to come to America, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you have a coast, that's another way of escaping. But then the control that the North Koreans have on the people, the mind control, is insane.
The mind control.
If you're telling me you've never seen a refugee escape by boat, or the mind control is real. That means these guys are like, oh, I got it good here. I'm gonna just chill in this beach house and fish. And risk my life fishing.
I don't think it's that. I'm scared.
No, that's it, right?
I'm scared, so I'm not going to... It's a fear-based thing for sure. But yeah, it is impressive. And yeah, man, it's also remarkable for the people who have left, right? 33,000 in South Korea about, and... anywhere between that number and 200, 300,000 in China, right? It's probably lower these days. So yeah, I mean, it's impressive that those people got up and left as well. Yeah. Despite all the fear tactics that North Korea has used.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they escaped the matrix, right? Yeah. Like they made it out of a very intensely controlled environment that's super hostile. And yeah, like, as impressive as the regime is, those people are even more impressive to be able to get out of that and make it. But then what's boggling my mind is that 99.9% of them went by foot over land.
Yes.
And there's a good percentage of coast on that country. Like, unless the government just controls the coast, maybe they got a coast guard that wrangles these people, people who are trying to escape in or out. Because if they're making it to this island in Japan, that means it's got to be like somewhat, I don't know, maybe it's Lake Michigan north to south, like us to UP.
Yeah.
But it's still doable, and I'm thinking if there's a percentage of people who are willing to risk by land getting shot at, like that soldier, the mad dash for the border getting shot at. Right. Like, I'm shocked, or maybe we don't know enough about it, but like, there aren't any more. I think we need
an expert here.
Yeah, who's doing the Castaway version of escaping,
or the Truman Show, right? Like,
there we go, back to Truman,
right? Like
the boat.
How would they leave? What have they been told about these waters that prevent them? I wonder what. Because you're right, it's just right there, and if you have a boat, why not? Why not risk it?
Well, even so more. Okay, now I'm in a hole. If I was a North Korean fisherman and I made it back from these crazy expeditions really far out, and I made it back, you kind of like have some reps now on your escape route. Like, you've been out there, like, if you're a good fisherman, know the waters, kind of like how rough it gets, how far it is to land.
Right. What time of year, the tide is
all that stuff. You kind of had the recipe and the ingredients to make a getaway. And you got a boat. But maybe it's a government controlling the boats, or again like a Coast Guard or something. Who knows?
I mean, North Korea does have a navy. I'm not an expert in, how capable they are, but they do have a navy. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I never thought of it actually. See, this is the thing, right? I've been studying North Korea, watching North Korea closely for the past 20 years of my life, and I'm like amazed by this. This is insane, right?
Which part, the ghost part, or the fact that you just never thought about how to escape by a boat?
No, there's lots of things that I haven't thought of that by now don't surprise me. But no, it's the fact that there's these ghost boats. How would they get out there? And the sheer number, that's crazy. It's crazy.
And that just got me thinking about when you just said North Korea has a navy. Like, what does that navy look like? Like, what are they driving out there?
No,
like
they're pretty
really
capable,
old
man.
Boats, or is these like modern battleships?
In 2010, I believe, the North Korean Navy got into a dust-up with the South Korean Navy, and the South Korean boat, it was called the Cheonan. It got shot down. And when I was working for the AP in Seoul, as a reporter, we were invited to check out this huge yacht or ship that got shut down, and literally in the middle of it was this huge hole. North Korea denied that they sent a torpedo or whatever, and it could have just been they're like it was a mechanical failure that they're blaming on. No, it was a giant hole in the boat. So they do have some capabilities.
So they have like submarines potentially.
Oh, they definitely have submarines.
Submarines,
sure.
They have.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe, back to the people's motivation on why they don't go just to South Korea. Maybe they're just afraid of the Navy. Maybe they're ever present along the coast, and
that could be it. I mean, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
You never know where those subs are.
Yeah, and they will send one torpedo to kill one person. They will do that. They are crazy enough.
That's been established already. No life is too expensive for a torpedo or anti-aircraft missile. Nobody.
No one is above that. That's the democratization or the equal lives of North Korea. No one is above this huge weapon being shot at them. No one's too good for that.
Oh my god.
Too bad for that.
I gotta say, if it were me, if I'm choosing between running across the border being shot at versus being on a boat and potentially torpedoed, I'm picking running across the border.
Really?
Heck yeah. I don't like the ocean. I love the ocean, but I don't like it. One of my phobias is being in deep water and just large animals down there. Like,
really?
I'm just like helpless. I went snorkeling in Hawaii one time with my wife, and it was like crystal clear. You could see probably like 100 feet down.
Yeah.
And I just started, I was in water. I could feel I was sweating. I was sweating in the water and I was like, why am I sweating right now? I'm like panicking because it was just like this deep, vast darkness. And I'm like,
it is.
What's down there?
Yeah.
Have you seen these like even nice whale sharks and whales? Like, that just terrifies me. Partly because I'm a human that's not equipped to move in water. And these things are.
I don't know what a nice whale shark is. I've never heard of such a beast before. But
anything, you know what I mean? Like, oh my god, that idea terrifies me. But I did it anyway.
Yeah,
I sweat in the ocean. No, I actually just do it anyway, because
just to challenge yourself.
It's kind of like the whole horror thing. Like, I like being afraid, so like I get a rush out of being sweating underwater.
I gotta choose the torpedo because at least with. Like, maybe it's because I've been to the border, but if you're running and someone's got a machine gun behind you, I mean, your odds of survival are pretty slim. But if you're
then a torpedo that's coming,
hold on. But with a torpedo, right? I picture like somehow seeing the torpedo, like the waves coming, and then jumping ship right there.
That's even worse, though. Now you're in the water. Now you're living my worst fear. You're in the water, in the deep ocean with nothing.
I'm
food for the sharks,
man. In that
man.
case, I swam, triathlon before, and
have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So I could swim like a mile. Well, like 4 years ago I could. So if I was swimming for my life.
300 miles, bro. We just talked about this. You're in the middle of this
just make
EC,
a U-turn
300 miles.
Into South Korea.
Was it one of those Ironman triathlons, or you swim 300 miles?
No. It's just 1 mile. That's an Olympic distance, buddy. So yeah, 1 mile. In a wetsuit, though. It's like, no, I can't make it. I'm just saying, I would, if I were to take my chances, I would like go for the jump ship from the torpedo thing. It's a very cartoon way of looking at things.
Oh my gosh. So of the 3 events in a triathlon, one of which you do almost every day, riding a bike, you'd rather pick the one thing that you're probably weakest in, the mile swim.
No, the running.
Okay, the running.
My knees. Maybe that's why I'm choosing the ship. If there was some cycling thing that you can do to escape, then that would be my first choice.
Cycle versus swimming
or running.
Running. Okay. Well, there's no. Well, he drove a Jeep. You get a Jeep, and then you got to run the rest of the distance.
I would pick a good bike.
I'm just still baffled that you picked jumping off a boat as the torpedo blows it up. That sounds. It's a little wooden boat. What's the torpedo?
It's just gonna go through it. It's gonna be fine.
No, it's gonna explode and launch you 50 feet in the air,
and then
with like splinters of wood, shrapnel all over your body.
Closer to Korea from the explosion. And
then the shrapnel's gonna make you bleed. Now that all the sharks can smell you from hundreds of miles away, and they're gonna come get you as you swim your 1 mile of the 300 miles you need to get to land.
Hopefully, there'll be nice whale sharks, as you call
them. Some friendly dolphins that come by and give you a ride.
Give you a ride, exactly.
To safety, dolphins. Take me.
To freedom.
This is all terrible.
Where did we go? How did we get here?
It's okay. We gotta go now.
Yeah, okay. Fine.
Hey, we all know Koreans love spam, just not in the form of emails. Crossing Borders loves to send awesome, non-spammy emails that give you all the information you want on what's happening to North Korean refugees. If you want it, go to crossingbordersnk.org and give us that email. Seriously, it's better than real spam.